Hello, this video will be about Albert Einstein's 1948 letter, open letter that he and other prominent figures at the time wrote to the New York Times. In short, this was them expressing their feelings and concerns about how the current Israeli leadership was a threat. And they were a threat because their ideologies represented that of a fascist party. And they also said this resembled what was the Nazi Party. And again, this was 1948. The date was December 2nd that they wrote it. It was published in the New York Times 2 days later. And this is the original, I'm guessing, scan of that letter. It is here in the archives. You will see the date, December 2nd. Somebody was great enough to put this into a much easier to read format. It's not perfect, but it's close enough that I'll use this instead of trying to read it from this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over what was said. I think I'll just read it. Although I'm sure everyone can read it themselves, I will read it for you. And we'll discuss what they call irreparable damage, and the repercussions today, 77 years later, of what Albert Einstein and these other people were trying to warn us about. So jumping into it, make my screen nice and big. Starting off strong. To the editors of the New York Times. Among the most disturbing political phenomena of our times is the emergence in the newly created state of Israel of the Freedom Party. This is Hebrew for the Herut Party, which will be, we'll use this later. Let's see if can I make this bigger. A political party closely akin in its organization, methods, political philosophy, and social appeal to the Nazi and Fascist parties. It was formed out of the membership and following of the former Lumi, or IZL or Ezel, a terrorist right-wing chauvinist organization in Palestine. The current visit of Menachem Begin, leader of the party, to the United States is obviously calculated to give the impression of American support for his party in the coming Israeli elections and to cement political ties with conservative Zionist elements in the United States. We're going to keep the word Zionist, that'll be important for later. It is inconceivable that those who oppose fascism throughout the world, if correctly informed as to Mr. Begin's political record and perspectives, could add their names and support to the movement he represents. Before irreparable damage is done by way of financial contributions, public manifestations in Begin's behalf, and the creation in Palestine of the impression that a large segment of America supports fascist elements in Israel, the American public must be informed as to the record and objectives of Mr. Begin and his movement. The public vows of Begin's party are no guide whatever to its actual character. Today they speak of freedom, democracy, and anti-imperialism, whereas until recently they openly preached the doctrine of the fascist state. It is in its actions that the terrorist party betrays its real character. From its past actions, we can judge what it may be expected to do in the future. And that was this first section right here. Now they're going to go and talk about this attack on an Arab village. A shocking example was their behavior in the Arab village of Deir Yassin. This village, off the main roads and surrounded by Jewish lands, had taken no part in the war and had even fought off Arab bands who wanted to use the village as their base. On April 9th, terrorist bands attacked this peaceful village, which was not a military objective in the fighting, killed most of its inhabitants, including 240 men, women, and children, and kept a few of them alive to parade as captives through the streets of Jerusalem. Most of the Jewish community was horrified at the deed, and the Jewish agency sent a telegram of apology to King Abdullah of Transjordan. But the terrorists, far from being ashamed of their act, were proud of their massacre, publicized it widely, and invited all the foreign correspondents present in the country to view the headed corpses and the general havoc at Deir Yassin. The Deir Yassin incident exemplifies the character and actions of the Freedom or Herut Party. Within the Jewish community, they have preached an admixture of ultra-nationalism, religious mysticism, and racial superiority. Like other fascist parties, they have been used to break strikes and have themselves pressed for the destruction of free trade unions. In their stead, they have proposed corporate unions on the Italian fascist model. During the last years of sporadic anti-British violence, the IZL and Stern groups inaugurated a reign of terror in Palestine Jewish community. Teachers were beaten up for speaking against them. Adults were shot for not letting their children join them. By gangster methods, beatings, window smashing, and widespread robberies, the terrorists intimidated the population and exacted a heavy tribute. The people of the Freedom Party have had no part in the constructive achievements in Palestine. They have reclaimed no land, built no settlements, and only detracted from the Jewish defense activity. Their much publicized immigration endeavors were minute and devoted mainly to bringing in fascist compatriots. That was this second part right here. Now we're going to wrap it up with discrepancies seen. The discrepancies between the bold claims now being made by Begin and his party and their record of past performance in Palestine bear the imprint of no ordinary political party. This is the unmistakable stamp of a fascist party for whom terrorism against Jews, Arabs, and British alike and misrepresentation are means, and a leader state is the goal. In the light of foregoing considerations, it is imperative that the truth about Mr. Begin and his movement be made known in this country. It is all the more tragic that the top leadership of American Zionism has refused to campaign against Begin's efforts or even to expose to its own constituents the dangers to Israel from support to Begin. The undersigned therefore take this means of publicly presenting a few salient facts concerning Begin and his party, and of urging all concerned not to support this latest manifestation of fascism. Signed, all these people, including Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein, the great theoretical physicist that gave us, the theory of relativity, kind of redefined what we know as far as astrophysics, as far as physics in general. So, what does this mean? Get back to my normal size here. What does all of this mean? So, the Herut Party. Well, what is the Herut Party? The Herut Party was created in 1948 by this guy right here, Menachem Begin, whatever his name is, how to pronounce it. And that only lasted until, I think the 70s. And then in the 70s, this party right here called the Likud Party kind of adopted the Herut Party along with this, they call it Liberal Party. Let me get these side by side maybe. So we know the Herut Party became the Likud Party. Now, what does this have to do with today? Because obviously this was 1948 that they had written this, warning us of very serious words, right? We have Nazi, we have fascism, we had terrorist, we had, all these awful words. So what's that have to do with today? The Herut Party dismantled. Well, actually, no. It was absorbed into the Likud Party. And today, who leads the Likud Party? Wow. There we go. Benjamin Netanyahu. And that should be concerning for a couple of reasons. Because who is Benjamin Netanyahu? Well, it says right here. He is an Israeli politician, Prime Minister of Israel since 2022, and leader of the Likud Party. He is also wanted by the International Criminal Court. Why is he wanted by the International Criminal Court? Allegedly responsible for the crimes of starvation as a method of warfare and intentionally directing an attack against the civilian population. That's one. The crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts from at least October 2023 until at least May of 2024. That's two. So, two crimes. War crimes, crimes against humanity. Situation at the State of Palestine. Interesting that they call it a State of Palestine because in America we don't recognize that. But who does recognize that Palestine is a state? Number of countries that recognize Palestine. It's 147 out of 193. 147 divided by 193. So about 3/4 of the world and growing recognize Palestine as a state. So the warning was for the Herut Party, which became the Likud Party, which became the party of Benjamin Netanyahu, which is ICC criminal. The word Zionist is important too. We'll come back to that. So what does this have to do with America? So if we do just a quick little search, we do Netanyahu and we do Trump, type in White House. President Trump welcomes Netanyahu to the White House. And this is posted by the literal White House website here. They're very proud. The bonds of friendship and affection between the American and Israeli people have endured for generations, and they are absolutely unbreakable. So America equals love for Israel. And their Likud Party, formerly known as the Herut Party, which was fascist, as told by Albert Einstein. Okay. So, something interesting that when Benjamin Netanyahu was at the White House, what did he do? Netanyahu, the criminal wanted by the International Criminal Court, nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. Let me read that again. Benjamin Netanyahu nominated Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. That should be a red flag, because that's kind of like saying a criminal is nominating another criminal for a prize that's based on peace, I guess. Not your typical nominee, not your typical sponsor, I guess, either. So that's where Netanyahu and Trump come together. Okay. So how does that, on a bigger scale, well, if you've ever heard of something called AIPAC. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, and it's a lobbying group that works to strengthen the relationship between the U.S. and Israel. It is a bipartisan organization that aims to influence U.S. foreign policy, and you should just do a full, well, we won't, to support Israel's security and interests. Security and interests. So they engage in lobbying, political activism, and grassroots mobilization to promote its agenda. Now, if you've ever heard of a guy named Bernie Sanders, he has been calling super PACs like this out for decades, saying that because what happens is these super PACs like AIPAC, they send millions of dollars to campaigns of those people running for office. And they come to them through campaign funds. And they're listed as, I don't know the exact word for it, but they're not specifically listed as foreign dollars, which is something Bernie Sanders has been saying needs political campaign needs reformed. So, and this is just one example. There are several, probably dozens of just Israeli PACs that are funneling money to American government and those running for a place in American government. So tens, hundreds of millions of dollars being spent to fund like their campaigns and campaign agenda. So that once they do get into office, who do you think they're going to work for? Well, the answer is seen in how we send our foreign aid. So in America, we don't have free healthcare, we don't have free college. But because we send billions and billions of dollars to Israel, the Israelis have free healthcare, the Israelis have free college, and the American taxpayers pay for that. So what does all this mean? If Israel is funding our Congress, congressmen and women, senators, other people, what are they going to do once they get into government, once they win their election? Well, they're going to do what's best for Israel. Okay? They're not going to do what is best for their constituents. And a constituent is basically just somebody who lives in their district. So it's basically they represent their constituents. They represent the people who are eligible to vote for them. So the people of a certain section, they all vote. Whoever wins the vote represents the people. This is usually an independent, a Republican, and a Democrat all competing against each other. Who's going to win? 99% of the time, the Republican or the Democrat. And how do they get their names on the ballots? Well, they run these massive campaigns funded sometimes with tens of millions of dollars from people like Israelis and Zionists specifically. So once they get in, then what happens? Well, let's see what fascism is. So fascism is an ultra-nationalist political ideology characterized by a dictator, right? Forcible suppression of opposition. This means silencing your enemy, either by firing them, getting somebody to run against them and take their seat, running a smear campaign, those kind of things. You get it? And strong regimentation of society and the economy. It emphasizes an authoritarian, centralized government, militarism, and a belief in a natural social hierarchy, often with a focus on racial or national purity. Okay, so what's authoritarianism? That advocates for a single, all-powerful leader or party, doesn't have to be just a person, it can be a whole party, suppressing dissent and individual liberties. I mean, this is exactly what's happening in the world right now. Okay, this is quite literally what Donald Trump is doing. He's trying to get an all-powerful party. I mean, his party is already extremely loyal. Okay, that's part of what you need to have a fascism. You have a fascism type government. You have to have people that are going to give you 100% 100% of their loyalty. And that's what we see in the Republican Party. And they're taking it now a step further with the whole gerrymandering thing in Texas, which I believe they won anyway, but now they're trying to like even pick up more seats and get rid of the Democrats. And they're doing this in a year where it's not normally done. So that's why it's really concerning is, yes, redistricting is a thing, but it's not usually done. I think it's usually done like a year after the census, which is every 10 years. So if in 2030 the census is done, in 2031 then they redistrict, okay? Because they have up-to-date population statistics. So the fact that we're trying to do this in 2025 is is weird. And they started this. Donald Trump personally said, hey, I want more seats. Give me more seats. We deserve more seats in Texas. And the Texas leader said, okay, we'll put it to a vote. And since Republicans have the majority, it doesn't matter who votes what, um, you're going to have the Republicans win. So to retaliate, they can't have a vote unless everybody's present. So the Democrats had left the state. And now what's happening is Donald Trump wants them arrested because they have left the state to avoid the vote. And I mean, all these core characteristics of fascism fit Donald Trump. They often embrace military values, glorify violence, and prioritize a strong military. Well, no fucking shit. I mean, we got ICE out there illegally detaining people. We have them stripping them of their constitutional rights. And constitutional rights, by the way, apply to anybody who is physically on American soil. It is not for Americans. It is for anybody that's on American soil. So just to get things clear, that is how the Constitution was written, and that's what the founders specifically said whenever they wrote it. Okay. Suppression of opposition, obviously. Every Democrat is stupid. Every Democrat is corrupt. Every Democrat is an idiot. Every Democrat is a piece of shit. Every Democrat should be gone, is what Donald Trump would want. Corporatism, obviously, this. I mean, this involves state control over the economy, which we're not really seeing, but what we are seeing is that the state may not control it, but Donald Trump's friends sure as hell do. Okay, they're getting huge tax cuts in like the one big beautiful bill. They're getting EPA regulations thrown out the window. We're now saying that science is no longer fact. Okay, cult of the leader. Charismatic leader is often presented as an infallible and essential to the nation's well-being. And when people say Donald Trump and his MAGA is a cult, absolutely. I mean, you cannot discuss anything with them. The ones who are truly devoted, right? They hold no accountability to Donald Trump. Everything he does is right, no matter what. And I mean, has to be a form of brainwashing or something. And I don't understand how they can be bought like that. I just don't get it. Scapegoating often identifies enemies or scapegoats to unify the population. So this would be, again, like minorities, like spending almost $200 billion because illegal aliens are such a threat. But he said he was going to go after the worst ones, and now he's literally going to court or sending ICE to courts to pick people up that are trying to play by the rules. Some of them are here legally, right? They came here, like they claimed asylum, and they're looking, just to continue their citizenship process, and they're going to court as they're instructed because they're legal to be here, and they're being detained and sometimes sent to countries that they're not even from. And then racial supremacy, again. I mean, obviously, Donald Trump prefers white people, right? I mean, there's no denying that whatsoever anymore. I used to kind of stand up for him and be like, well, he doesn't hate black people. He doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't give a fuck about anybody except him and his friends and Benjamin Netanyahu, the guy that's wanted by the International Criminal Court. That's what he cares about. And he will make any minority look bad. It doesn't matter. It's just today. It's illegal immigrants. Primarily like Mexicans, right? Mexicans, Central Americans, Then next it's homeless. He's going after the homeless. He's trying to criminalize being homeless. Criminalizing homelessness is like saying, okay, you're homeless, now you're living on the streets, so you're going to have to pay a fine. Well, the people can't afford rent. I don't think they're going to afford fines. Okay, now you can go to jail. I mean, that is where we're at today. And this just goes hand in hand with everything in Project 2025, which, again, something he had publicly denounced in the past, but today, if you they have a website here, 47% in just 7 months. And if you don't know what Project 2025 is, I would highly suggest looking at it. It's like a 900-page manifesto, but I don't know. This might be. I mean, even if it's from a conservative, it's still not going to sound good, right? It's no matter whose review of it that you were to look into, it's not going to look good at all. So allowing states to ban private sector labor unions, making it easy for corporations to fire people, making it easier for them to fire people because they're trying to unionize or because they're trying to organize collective action, permitting corporations to dissolve unions entirely, mandating secret ballot elections for union formation, right? Eliminating overtime protections, which they've done, disregarding the minimum wage, which they're trying to do. And this is just looks like for what corporations. So I mean, this isn't even going into. Let's see what human rights says about it. That's good to subvert American democracy. That is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to transform the United States to a right-wing authoritarian state, which is exactly what Albert Einstein was trying to warn would happen. And they're going after everybody. Doesn't fucking matter who you are. You know, these are the people that want to burn the books, rewrite the history, be able to change what is factual and what is not. Giving more and more power to Donald Trump. Defunding things like public broadcasting, which is something like Hitler did. The Department of Education, so he wants to make his people stupider. He wants to cut healthcare. He wants to make us sicker. He wants us to become, again, just less educated, even not in book smarts, but in what's going on around us and being able to getting real news. That's why he wants to cut. That's why he did cut public broadcasting. He's reducing SNAP benefits because he wants his people to be, less fed. And he'll do all this and say it's because of illegal immigrants, and then spend 170 billion trying to get rid of them by sticking them in camps, taking away their constitutional rights. So it's really just a scary time to be in America. It's a scary time because they have pretty much absolute control of the federal government. And people, we can speak out all we want, and we need to continue speaking out, but until they don't have total control, we need to worry. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat right now, we need to make sure that the current Republican Party does not maintain control. Because this, again, they're using it as a mask. They're not really like a Republican Party, right? They are like a MAGA party, and they want a fascism type of government because they'll be taken care of. Again, they're going against the interests of their constituents. They know what they need to do to help themselves, and that is absolute control. So again, this is, straight out of Albert Einstein's and friends' mouths 77-ish years ago. And we're seeing it in the repercussions today. And the common denominator is Israel, right? They have control over the United States, and they're going to do what they can to get as much control and power as they possibly can.